The Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew, chapter 11, beginning at verse 2. It is read in Cantonese. 主耶穌基督嘅聖福音係記載喺聖馬太福音第11章由第2節讀起。約翰在監裏聽見基督所做的事，就打發2個門徒去問他說：那將要來的是你嗎？還是我們等候別人呢？耶穌回答說：你們去，把所聽見、所看見的事告訴約翰，就是瞎子看見、瘸子行走、長大麻風的潔淨、聾子聽見、死人復活、窮人有福音傳給他們。凡不因我跌倒的，就有福了。他們走的時候，耶穌就對眾人講論約翰說：你們從前出到曠野，是要看什麼呢？要看風吹草動的蘆葦嗎？你們出去到底要看什麼呢？要看穿細軟衣服的人嗎？那穿細軟衣服的人是在王宮裏。你們出去究竟是為什麼？是要看先知嗎？我告訴你們，是的，他比先知大多了。經上記着說：我要差遣我的使者在你前面預備道路。所說的就是這個人。我實在告訴你們，凡婦人所登的，沒有一個興起來大過施洗約翰的。然而天國裏最小的比他還大。
Hello, and welcome today to a lovely sunny day in Hasetani-cho Park in Nishi in the West Ward of Kobe City. It's a lovely small park. There's a playing area, a ground, and just behind me down here there's some athletic equipment for help you doing stretches for your abdominal muscles, as one says down here, and other parts of your body, and keeping you fit. There's nobody here, and it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's lovely, and it's twice the temperature it was last week, so it's about 14 degrees now, which is lovely, and it's lovely to be outside in a fresh, beautiful day with a lovely blue sky behind me. Now, unless you have been living in outer space, you probably know that we are in the middle of a football World Cup right now. And before that tournament started, there were no doubt fans of many countries who had expectations of their teams, especially those countries that have traditionally been pretty strong at football: Germany, Spain, Wales. How things have changed when we look at the table today. And for me, being English and living in Japan, I was always quietly hopeful that one of those two teams, or both, would do reasonably well. Well, there's always next time. But football aside, the truth is that we all have expectations in life, in relationships, at work. And every day we probably wake up expecting things to turn out a certain way. The star of our gospel reading, John, was like that. Let's see what happened to him. Now, in case you can't remember, this was the man who baptized Jesus, and personally at that time heard the voice of God acknowledging his son. This was a man whose life had been intimately connected to Jesus from the moment their two pregnant mothers met. This was a man who we heard last week stirring up trouble, calling religious leaders names, telling people that they needed to prepare and make a straight road for the Lord, and giving dire warnings about a fire that would never go out. This was a great man of God with an unshakable faith, whom people came from far away to listen to and to be baptized by. A man whose message was one of hope, of a bright future, of expectation of the Saviour who would change things. And where does our reading find him today? In a dark place, where he seems to have lost all of that. He is in prison, he's been there for months, and he is facing death. Just think about that reversal of fortunes, from hero to zero, from John the Great to death row inmate. How do you think he felt? Gakkari, I think, is a great Japanese word at this time. I think he felt gakkari. He felt disappointed, he felt let down, he felt gutted about the way things had turned out. Where was the Messiah that he expected? I bet that's what he felt. How on earth did I end up here? This wasn't supposed to happen. That's something else, I'm sure, that he felt. Remember, John spent his whole life preparing the way for Jesus, believing that he was the Messiah who was coming to make things better. But here, in prison, in his darkest hour, when all his expectations have vanished, the great John the Baptist doubts. And he wants to know the truth. Of course he does. So he sends his disciples to go and check, to ask Jesus, are you really the one? Or must we wait for somebody else? You see, John doesn't get it. He had his clear ideas about what the Messiah would do and who the Messiah would be. Expectations of something that was going to come that would make the world a better place and make his life better probably too. And then Jesus turned up. And what John expected to happen didn't happen. There was no violent threshing fork, no organising of an army to drive out the Romans. There was seemingly no change. This Jesus turned out to be a big soft wuss. Where was all that John had been predicting, all that John had been promising, all that John had been building his life around? So of course he wonders. It's human. This guy didn't live up to my expectations, he thinks. Is he really the Messiah that we're waiting for? This John, this man that Jesus himself said no one ever born was greater than, this John who was so certain just a few chapters before, we're told that he loses heart. And you know what? Honestly, that makes me feel so relieved. Because I know that sometimes I'm in that place too. When I find it hard to believe in God's goodness, especially when there's so much pain, suffering and evil in our world, and when my life is sometimes just so rubbish. And I've just moved location because the sun went behind the tree and it got very dark. And sometimes in life it seems like that. Things get a bit difficult, it goes a bit dark, and I wonder why, I wonder where God is in all that. Because as humans, we do all have times when God doesn't fit our expectations, and because God is not God as we expect, and so we do feel disappointed. And it is then that we need to remember this reading, because what does Jesus say to John in it? Open your eyes, man, look around you. The blind are now able to see, and the lame can walk. People with leprosy are being cured, and the deaf can hear. The dead are raised to life, and the poor are hearing the good news. And that probably shut him up. But seriously, I guess it also encouraged him a little, because Jesus is telling him that what he promised the people is happening. And you know what that means? that in those times when we feel like John, disenchanted when God doesn't fit our expectations, we will be asked the same thing. What were you expecting? Someone dressed in fine clothes and leading an army? And in all honesty, even if we don't admit it, we probably often are expecting a big, strong, powerful God who we understand and who acts in the ways that we think are right. And that is, of course, wrong. John needed to accept Jesus was a very different kind of Messiah to the all-singing, all-dancing problem solver that he was expecting. And we often need to do the same, to accept a God not always as we expect, nor answering prayers as we think is right too. So, this Advent, this time of expectant waiting and preparation that we've been talking about, when we do see disappointment, anxiety, pain, fear, anger, when we see unfulfilled expectations of God all over the place, and maybe we wonder where God is, think about how we react when things of God are not as we would like, what we expect. And then stand back and look at the world around you and see the deserts bursting into bloom. See the goodness of God and rejoice. You know, way back in medieval times, this third Sunday in Advent was given another name. It was called Gaudete Sunday, which means Rejoice Sunday, because that is what we are called to do. Even in the midst of times when things seem difficult, when things seem bleak, when it seems that God is not present, rejoice because He is. You know, in life, many things do not live up to our expectations in one way or another. Sports teams especially. And similarly, we might not find God as or where we expect. But if there's one thing that Advent and the whole of the Nativity story, to be honest, reminds us of, it's the fact that we can be sure that God is here with us, now and always. Emmanuel. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for keeping faith in us, even when we don't do the same. Help us to expect the unexpected, and so see your hand at work all around us. Through Jesus Christ, our risen Lord. Amen.